quiet teen runs away. Then come the robotic phone calls and the chilling discovery. Her phone was a gateway to a hidden world of men. Was Joniah Walker running to someone or running from a trafficking ring? One afternoon in 2022, 15-year-old Joniah Walker stepped out of her house for a walk. Just a walk. Nothing unusual for a quiet girl who kept to herself. But she never came back. What seemed like a teenage rebellion soon spiraled into something darker. Something tangled in cryptic phone calls, buried digital secrets, and a web of grown men who knew her name. This isn't just a disappearance. It's a trail of whispers. And it leads nowhere. Before the phone calls, before the digital trail went cold, you need to understand who vanished that day. Because Joniah Walker wasn't just another missing teen statistic. She was a girl living a double life, one visible, one hidden in the glow of her screen. Narrator, to the outside world, Joniah was quiet, painfully quiet, not loud, not rebellious in the typical sense. She was the kid who faded into the background, the one whose absence in a room you might not notice at first. Her own family described her as a ghost in her own home. Haunted, they said, haunted by a heavy cloud of depression, by anxiety that tightened like a fist, and by a crushing, constant feeling of just not belonging, not fitting in anywhere. Her refuge? Her bedroom, locked away for hours. Inside those walls, she was an artist, filling journals with sketches, poetry, the swirling thoughts she couldn't speak out loud. And then there was her phone. It was more than a device. It was her portal, a place where the quiet girl could maybe find connection or escape. She'd disappear into it, scrolling, messaging, lost in its blue light. That phone, it held the echo of her inner world, the secrets she kept even from those who loved her. Little did anyone know, it wasn't just an escape. It was silently weaving the threads of a mystery that would soon unravel in the worst possible way. That phone, it wouldn't just hold clues. It would become the terrifying key to understanding just how deep the shadows around her disappearance truly ran. It was an ordinary afternoon. No storm clouds gathering, no dark omens, just a regular day fading into a late summer evening. Joniah had been in her room. Like usual, the quiet hum of the house felt normal. Nothing felt wrong. Nothing felt like the last time. She came downstairs at some point. Her grandmother was there, maybe in the kitchen, maybe watching TV. The details are mundane, which makes what happened next so jarring. Joniah didn't announce anything grand. She didn't slam doors or shout. She was just leaving. For a walk. That's all. She mumbled the words, barely audible, almost an afterthought tossed over her shoulder. I'll be back. Just like that. A simple statement, an expectation of return. Her grandmother likely nodded, maybe said okay, or be careful, or maybe didn't even register it fully because it was so normal. Joniah walked out. The door closed behind her. Not a slam, just a click. The sound of an everyday exit. Hours ticked by. The sun started its slow dip towards the horizon. Dinner time might have approached. Her grandmother probably expected to hear the door open any minute. Joniah shuffling back in, heading straight for her room. But the door stayed shut. The light outside faded from gold to orange, then to deep purple, then finally to the inky black of full night. Stillness. Silence where there should have been footsteps. An empty space at the table, though she rarely ate with them. A growing unease in the pit of her grandmother's stomach. Where was she? A walk didn't take this long. Not in the dark. Phone call started. To Joniah's cell. Ringing. 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 Going straight to voicemail. Again. And again. A cold dread, different from the usual worry about her moods, began to creep in. This wasn't like her. Even when she was distant. She came home. She was here. Calls went out to friends. Have you seen Joniah? Is she with you? The answers were all the same. No. Haven't seen her. Not today. The quiet house now felt suffocating, filled only by the unanswered ringing of a phone and a rising tide of panic. The decision was made. The police were called. That first call, reporting a missing 15-year-old girl. The words felt heavy, unreal. Officers arrived, lights flashing outside, cutting through the night. A sudden, harsh intrusion into the quiet fear. Questions began. When did you last see her? What was she wearing? Did she seem upset? Was there an argument? The answers felt frustratingly thin. Last seen leaving for a walk. Wearing maybe jeans? A hoodie? Her grandmother couldn't be sure. No argument. No big fight. Just gone. The police took notes. their faces professionally concerned. They'd look around. They said, "Check the neighborhood." Standard procedure. The initial search began. Flashlights swept across the familiar yard, the sidewalk, nearby streets, calling her name into the darkness. Joniah, the sound echoing, swallowed by the night, met with nothing but silence. They checked her room, not for clues, not yet. But maybe she'd left a note, something explaining. But her room looked exactly as it always did. Bed maybe unmade, sketchbook open on the desk, phone charger lying there, useless, no backpack missing, no suitcase gone, no frantic scribble on paper saying, "I'm leaving" or "Don't look for me." Just the absence of her. Her presence had been quiet, but her absence was a deafening void. As the hours bled into the early morning, the reality sank in like ice water. This wasn't a kid staying out late. This wasn't a tantrum. Joniah Walker was missing, vanished. The police expanded their search, checked local parks, bus stops, anywhere a teenager might go. Nothing. They talked to neighbors. Had anyone seen her? Anyone notice anything unusual? Shaking heads. No one saw a thing. It was as if the sidewalk itself had opened up and swallowed her the moment she stepped out of sight of her front door. No struggle. No dropped belongings. No witnesses. Just gone. Plucked off the street. Erased. The family was left in a terrifying limbo. What do? You pace. You stare at the phone, willing it to ring with her voice on the other end. You jump at every car door slamming outside. You replay that last moment, that mumbled, "I'll be back," 1,000 times. Was there a hint? A tone you missed? Did she look back? Every mundane detail of the day became a potential clue examined under a microscope of fear. Did she eat breakfast? What song was playing? Was the sky really clear? The ordinary had become terrifyingly significant, yet utterly meaningless in providing answers. The official report was filed, missing juvenile. Flyers were printed with her photo, that quiet, serious face looking out. They were posted on poles, in shop windows. Social media alerts went out. "Have you seen this girl?" The community started to buzz, a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. People shared the posts, drove slowly past the house, talked in hushed tones, but no solid leads emerged. The trail, if there ever was one visible to the naked eye, was stone cold. Those first 24 hours, then 48, are crucial in any missing persons case. The clock was ticking, loud and terrifying in the silence of that house. Hope, that fragile thing, started to fray at the edges with every passing hour. The police did what they could, but the lack of anything, no sign of a struggle, no destination, no digital breadcrumb trail activated yet, was baffling. It felt less like a disappearance and more like an evaporation. The family clung to the thinnest threads. Maybe she just needed space and would come back. Maybe she was staying with a friend they didn't know about. Maybe she got confused, lost. But deep down, the chilling truth was settling in. Joniah didn't wander off. She didn't get lost. Something had happened between the click of that front door closing and the moment her grandmother realized the night was too deep, too quiet, something deliberate, something hidden. The oppressive quiet of those initial hours was a heavy blanket, smothering but strangely simple in its horror. She was gone, and they didn't know why or how. It was a pure, agonizing absence. But that quiet, it was the fragile calm before a very different storm, because the silence couldn't last. The waiting, the not knowing, was its own torture. But the next sound to break that silence wouldn't be the welcome jingle of keys in the door. It would be the shrill, demanding ring of the telephone, and the voice on the other end wouldn't bring comfort. It would twist the knife of fear into something darker, stranger, and far more sinister. The quiet was about to shatter. The calls were coming. The days after Joniah vanished stretched into weeks. Weeks filled with a terrible, grinding silence. Hope, that stubborn little flame, flickered lower and lower. Flyers faded on telephone poles. News reports dwindled. The frantic energy of the first search had settled into a heavy, exhausting dread. Life tried to push forward, but every moment was haunted by her absence. The house felt like a shell. Every phone ring, every knock at the door, sent jolts of desperate adrenaline through her family. Could this be it? Could this be news? They jumped every single time. Answering machines listened to with trembling hands. Unknown numbers scrutinized. Hearts pounding. Most calls were dead ends. Reporters seeking updates. Well-meaning neighbors. Wrong numbers that felt like cruel jokes. Each one chipped away at them. The waiting was a special kind of torture. The silence wasn't empty. It was loud with fear and unanswered questions. And then, one day, the phone rang again. Maybe it was morning. Maybe afternoon. The exact time blurs in the memory of trauma. But the ringtone cut through the numb exhaustion like a shard of glass. Someone picked up. Maybe her grandmother. Maybe her mother. Breath held. Heart stopped. Silence on the line at first. Or maybe a low hum. A faint crackle. Not a clear connection. Then a voice. But it wasn't right. It wasn't human in the way they needed it to be. It was flat. Robotic. Like words being forced through layers of digital gravel. Distorted beyond recognition. A machine trying. Badly. To mimic speech. The words were clear enough. Though, cutting through the static. I'm safe. A pause. Just the unnatural hum. Stop looking for me. And then nothing. The line went dead. Not a click. Just silence rushing back in. Heavier and colder than before. The shock was physical. It punched the air out of the room. Someone was breathing fast. Shallow. Hands were shaking. Minds racing. Trying to process. Was that? Did it say? For a split second. A wild, desperate hope surged. Joniah. She's alive. She called. But the feeling curdled almost instantly. That voice. It wasn't her. It couldn't be her. It didn't sound like a scared girl. It didn't sound like anyone. It sounded manufactured. Artificial. Wrong. The immediate reaction was a frantic call back. Dialing the number that showed up. Ringing. Ringing. Straight to voicemail. A disconnected tone. A dead end. Panic set in. Who is that? Why would someone do this? What did it mean? The police were called immediately. The call was reported. The number traced. Likely leading to a burner phone. A dead end in a maze. The message was played and replayed. Analyzed by detectives and family alike. I'm safe. Stop looking for me. The robotic distortion stripped away any feeling. Any nuance. It felt cold. Calculated. Was it a cruel prank? Some sick person getting kicks from a family's agony? Was it something else? Something darker? The words themselves offered a twisted kind of hope. I'm safe, but the delivery poisoned it. It felt like a lie wrapped in static. It felt like a taunt. Stop looking for me. A command. A dismissal. It didn't sound like something Joniah would say. Not like that. Not with that voice. The family was left reeling, caught between a sliver of hope and a chasm of new, terrifying fear. Days might have passed. Tense, sleepless days. Every ring of the phone now carried a different kind of terror. Was it them again? Was it more of this awful game? The family hovered near the phone, dreading it and willing it to ring all at once. The silence after the first call wasn't peaceful. It was charged, like waiting for the next strike of lightning. And then, it came. Another call. Same number? A different one. It didn't matter. The ring was like an alarm bell. Someone answered, bracing this time, expecting the robotic voice again, preparing to hear those awful, distorted words. But this time it was different. No static hum. No robotic filter. This was a human voice. A man's voice. Deep, light. It didn't register clearly in the shock. What registered was the sound itself. It was laughter. Not a chuckle. Not a nervous giggle. A low, deliberate laugh. A laugh that sounded amused. Satisfied. Maybe even mocking. It wasn't loud, but it was incredibly clear. It filled the earpiece for just 2, maybe 3 seconds. A sound utterly devoid of warmth. Devoid of anything resembling human kindness. Just amusement. At their expense. At Joniah's expense. At the whole horrible situation. And then, before anyone could shout, before anyone could demand to know who he was, before anyone could even fully process the chilling sound, click. The line went dead. Silence. Again. This time, there was no frantic dialing back. No surge of desperate hope. Just cold, paralyzing terror. The laughter echoed in the room long after the call ended. It echoed in their heads. It wasn't a prank call anymore. This wasn't just some random jerk. That laugh, it felt personal. It felt targeted. It felt like a predator letting them know he was watching. He was listening. He knew how much they were hurting, and he found it funny. These calls weren't accidents. They weren't mistakes. They weren't well-intentioned people getting it wrong. The robotic message, devoid of humanity. The cold, mocking laugh. They were deliberate. They were calculated. They felt like moves in a game. A sick, twisted game where the family were unwilling players. And the stakes were their sanity and their missing daughter's life. Taunts, psychological torture. Each call was a fist tightening around their hearts. The message, "I'm safe," became meaningless, poisoned by the robotic voice. The laughter erased any lingering illusion that this might be a misguided attempt to help. Hope, what little remained after weeks of silence, didn't just fade. It twisted. It mutated into something cold and sharp. Pure, unadulterated dread. If she was safe, why this horrific charade? Why the laughter? Who was controlling this narrative? Who had access to a phone? To her name? To her family's pain? And thought it was funny? The calls stopped as suddenly as they started. No more robotic messages. No more chilling laughter. Just a return to that suffocating, heavy silence. But it was a different silence now. It wasn't the silence of absence. It was the silence of threat. The silence after a bomb goes off nearby. It was filled with the echoes of those distorted words and that cruel laugh. They knew, without a doubt now, that Joniah wasn't just missing. She was caught in something far more sinister. And someone out there was playing with them, watching them, enjoying their suffering. The mystery had just plunged into terrifying, uncharted darkness. The hunt wasn't just for a missing girl anymore. It was for the source of that static, and the owner of that laugh. After the chilling phone calls, the police knew they needed to dig deeper. The key wasn't just on the streets anymore. It was likely hidden in the one place Joniah spent most of her time, her phone. That device she always had in her hand, the blue glow lighting up her face in the dark of her room. It wasn't just a phone. It was her constant companion, her window to another world. And now, it might be the only window investigators had into what happened to her. Getting access wasn't simple. Phones hold secrets tightly. Passcodes, biometrics. But with legal steps and the family's desperate consent, investigators finally got inside. What they found wasn't just a teenager's messages to friends. It was a revelation, a shock. It was like opening a door to a hidden room in Joniah's life that no one, absolutely no one in her family, knew existed. On the surface, maybe it looked normal. Some photos, some music apps, maybe a game or two. But beneath that surface, a whole other universe. Investigators started tracing her digital footsteps. Her main social media profiles? Relatively quiet. A few posts. Some likes. The kind of harmless activity her family might have glimpsed. But that was just the tip of a massive, dark iceberg. They discovered hidden accounts. Usernames her family had never heard. Profiles under different names. Sometimes just initials. Sometimes completely made-up personas. These weren't on the big, familiar platforms everyone uses. These were on apps designed for secrecy. Apps known for encrypted messages, messages that vanish, conversations that leave no trace. Places where people go specifically to hide who they are and what they're doing. And the contacts? That's where the picture turned truly disturbing. This wasn't a list of friends from school, or cousins, or online buddies her age. The flood of messages, the sheer volume of communication, came overwhelmingly from adult men. Dozens of them. Scores. Maybe. Men Joniah had never mentioned. Men her family had certainly never met. Names that meant nothing to them. These men weren't local. They weren't just from the next town over. They were scattered. Different cities. Different states. Sometimes hundreds of miles apart. A network of strangers, spread out like a dark web across the map. All connected to this quiet 15-year-old girl sitting alone in her bedroom. The content of the messages? Chilling. It wasn't innocent chatting. It wasn't shared interests in music or art. The conversations investigators could recover painted a grim picture. Some men were clearly grooming her, building trust slowly, compliments that felt too personal too fast, questions about her life, her feelings of isolation, her struggles, weaponizing her vulnerability, sharing details about their lives designed to seem exciting, dangerous, or understanding, creating a bond in the shadows. Others were more direct, blunt, transactional. They weren't interested in a relationship, fake or real. They wanted something, and they were willing to pay. Investigators found evidence of money transfers. Small amounts, sometimes, larger sums, other times, sent to Joniah. Digital payments slipping quietly into accounts her family knew nothing about. Payments for what? The question hung heavy and terrifying in the air. And then there were the requests, the demands, explicit requests for photos, not selfies with friends, not pictures of her art, specific, degrading photos, requests that made the investigators' blood run cold. Did she send them? The records couldn't always show that definitively, but the sheer number of requests, the persistence, the context of the conversations, it painted a horrifyingly clear picture of pressure and exploitation. This wasn't just one bad conversation. This was a pattern, a relentless stream of contact from grown men, seeking something from a vulnerable child. Some were predators, carefully manipulating. Others were customers, looking to buy. All of them were adults. All of them knew, or should have known, exactly how young she was. Her age wasn't a secret online. Think about that. While her grandmother thought she was just scrolling through videos or texting a friend, while her family worried about her being quiet and sad in her room, Joniah was navigating this treacherous, hidden landscape. She was fielding messages from strangers decades older, dealing with demands for pictures, accepting money, engaging in conversations filled with danger and deceit, all while physically safe within her own home's walls. The danger was pouring in through the screen. How did it start? How did a quiet, depressed girl find herself in this dark online underworld? Maybe she went looking for connection, for someone who seemed to understand her loneliness. Maybe she was curious. Maybe she stumbled into it by accident. Once you step onto that path, it's easy to get pulled deeper, especially when you're young and hurting. The men she encountered weren't there to help. They saw vulnerability and moved in. The sheer scale was overwhelming. Investigators had to map it all. Each username, each phone number linked to a burner phone, each payment trail, often leading to dead ends or fake accounts. Each cryptic conversation fragment recovered from the digital void. It was a massive, tangled web, and Joniah was right at the center of it. This discovery changed everything. It wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. It was a potential case of exploitation, trafficking, coercion. It explained why she might run to someone who promised escape, money, excitement, understanding. But it also explained why she might be running from something terrifying. Had one of these online contacts turned into a real-world threat? Had she tried to get out, and someone silenced her? Had a meeting gone horribly wrong? The phone, that small rectangle of plastic and glass, became the most crucial piece of evidence. It revealed a Joniah her family never knew, a Joniah living a dangerous double life right under their noses. It showed she wasn't just a victim of circumstance when she disappeared. She was already entangled in a web of predators and purchasers long before she walked out the door. Her phone wasn't just a device. It was the gateway to a parallel life that ultimately swallowed her whole. The ghosts weren't just in her mind anymore. They were in her messages, her apps, her payment history. They were digital, and they were terrifyingly real. The discovery of Joniah's hidden online life was a shockwave. But the real chilling effect came when investigators started pulling on the threads leading out from her phone. They weren't just looking at messages anymore. They were trying to put names, faces, and locations to the dozens of usernames and numbers that flooded her digital world. This is where the story moves from disturbing to deeply unsettling. This is where the shadows gained shape. The picture that emerged wasn't random. It wasn't a confused teenager chatting vaguely with strangers. Police painstakingly traced contacts. Real identities started to surface, attached to real people living real lives. And the profile was alarmingly consistent. Adult men, men in their 20s, men in their 30s, men in their 40s and possibly older. Grown adults, fathers, brothers, co-workers, neighbors, living ordinary lives by day, it seemed, but leading dangerous secret ones online by night. Some of these men fit the classic predator mold. Their messages to Joniah were textbook grooming. They identified her loneliness, her depression, her feeling of being misunderstood. They offered sympathy, understanding, a listening ear. They built trust slowly, carefully. They shared just enough about their own lives, maybe manufactured struggles, maybe exciting adventures, to make her feel special, chosen. They flattered her. They made her feel older, wiser, more desired than she felt in her real life. They were patient hunters, setting digital traps for a vulnerable child. But others? They were harder to categorize, yet just as concerning. Their communication was less about building a relationship and more transactional. Blunt, to the point. They weren't interested in her feelings. They were interested in what she could provide. Photos, specific interactions. They were the ones sending money, the ones making clear, crude demands. They weren't grooming a victim. They were soliciting a child. They were customers in a hidden, horrific marketplace. And then there were the ghosts, the ones who remained frustratingly out of reach. Usernames linked to burner phones purchased with cash. Accounts created with fake information. Abandon the moment questions arose. Digital footprints that vanished into thin air. Just names on a screen. Faceless voices. Untraceable payments. Shadows within the shadows. But one terrifying thread tied almost all these contacts together. Regardless of their approach, Joniah hadn't just been talking to them online. She had made concrete plans to meet several of them. In person, the evidence was there, buried in the recovered fragments of conversations. Discussions about locations, parks, bus stations, roadside diners outside her town. Discussions about times. Discussions about travel bus routes. Train tickets. Even offers of rides. This wasn't idle fantasy talk. This was planning. This was intention. This discovery shifted the entire investigation. That ordinary afternoon she walked out the door, was it really just a walk? Or was she heading towards one of these prearranged meetings? Was the quiet girl, feeling trapped and alone, finally taking the plunge? Running to someone who had promised her escape, excitement, money, or maybe just understanding? Someone who presented themselves online as her salvation? Or was she running from someone? Had one of these online relationships turned sour? Had a transaction gone wrong? Had a predator who thought he had control realized she might talk, or try to back out? Had she tried to cut contact, only to be met with threats? Did someone decide silence was safer than exposure? Did she leave that day not seeking a new life, but fleeing a terrifying one that had already started within her own bedroom walls? The potential meeting points became crucial. Investigators scrambled. They traced routes. They checked security cameras near bus stops, train stations, the locations mentioned in those fragmented plans. They looked for any glimpse of her on that afternoon. But, like the initial disappearance, the trail on the ground remained frustratingly cold. Had she changed her mind? Had the meeting happened somewhere else? Had she been intercepted before she got there? Then came the next chilling layer. As police began identifying these men, as they started knocking on doors, making phone calls, serving warrants for digital records, something strange happened. Many of them vanished. Not physically, necessarily, though some certainly became harder to find. But they vanished digitally. Burner phones were discarded. Suspicious social media accounts were deactivated overnight. Messaging apps were deleted. Payment accounts were closed. Men who had been actively communicating with a minor suddenly developed amnesia. Don't know her. Never talked to her. Must be a mistake. Walls went up. Lawyers appeared. Cooperation vanished. This sudden silence wasn't just suspicious. It was deafening. Why run? Why hide? Why erase your digital existence the moment police ask about contact with a missing 15-year-old girl? Innocent people, even if embarrassed, usually cooperate. They provide alibis. They explain. They want to clear their name. This massive apparition? This coordinated retreat into silence? It screamed guilt. It screamed knowledge. It screamed that these men knew exactly how dangerous their interactions with Joniah had been, and they were desperate to cover their tracks. It painted a picture of a hidden network, not necessarily a formal one, but a shared understanding, a community operating in the digital underbelly, preying on the vulnerable, and closing ranks the moment one of them, or their victim, attracted serious police attention. They weren't protecting Joniah, they were protecting themselves. So, the questions hung heavier than ever, sharpened by this pattern of disappearance. Which specific man was she planning to meet that day? Did she make it? What happened when she did? Or, which man felt threatened enough by her potential exposure to make her disappear? Who among this list of adults, scattered across the map, had the motive, the opportunity, and the willingness to silence a troubled teenager forever? The men in the shadows weren't just suspects. They were the shadows surrounding her disappearance. Their presence in her digital life provided motive, both for her to run towards them, and for them to make her vanish. Their sudden silence when confronted wasn't just evasion. It was a collective slamming of doors in the faces of investigators desperate for the truth. They held the keys, but they'd melted them down. The pattern was clear: a vulnerable girl, a network of adult men, planned meetings, and then a terrifying, coordinated retreat into darkness. The chill wasn't just from the mystery. It was from the cold efficiency with which these shadows seemed to operate. So here we are. A quiet girl walks out her door and vanishes. Her phone reveals a hidden life tangled with dozens of adult men. Sinister calls taunt her family. The men scatter like roaches when the light hits them. The evidence paints a terrifying picture. But the central question remains, what actually happened to Joniah Walker? The police, the family, the investigators, they all wrestle with the possibilities. None are easy, none offer comfort, but they form the grim puzzle pieces trying to fit together. Theory 1, the desperate runaway. This is the simplest explanation, the one that maybe offers a flicker of hope. Joniah was deeply unhappy, depressed, anxious, feeling trapped and unseen in her own home and life. The weight of it all became too much. That afternoon, she didn't just go for a walk. She kept walking. She ran, not on a whim, but as a desperate, final act to escape the pain, to start over somewhere else. Maybe she used the money those men sent her. Maybe she boarded a bus to a city where she thought she could disappear, be someone new, leave the ghost behind. It makes sense on the surface. Her mental state was fragile. Running away is a tragically common act for teens feeling utterly hopeless. But then come the cracks in this theory. Why the sinister phone calls? If she ran for freedom, why would she or anyone helping her make those calls? The robotic voice claiming to be her? The chilling, mocking laughter? That doesn't sound like someone starting fresh. It sounds like cruelty. It sounds like someone deliberately inflicting pain on her family. A genuine runaway might cut contact completely, but they rarely taunt. Those calls feel like a performance, a sick game played from the shadows. They poison the idea of a clean escape. Theory 2, the darker path, trafficking or coercion. Look at the evidence laid bare. The dozens of adult men, the secret online world, the grooming conversations, the explicit demands, the money changing hands, the planned meetings. This screams exploitation. This fits the horrifying pattern of trafficking or severe online coercion. Perhaps one of those men she planned to meet did pick her up that afternoon. Maybe he lured her with promises that seemed real, love, adventure, a way out. Only, the destination wasn't freedom. It was control. The money transfers could point to her already being commodified online. The planned meetings could have been the next step, moving from the digital marketplace to the physical one. The men disappearing when police came knocking? That's exactly what happens when predators fear exposure. They vanish to protect their operation. Their secrets, themselves, and the phone calls? Perfectly explained. A trafficker or handler silencing the family, trying to throw off the search. The robotic voice, a cheap, disposable way to mimic her and buy time. The man's laugh? The chilling arrogance of someone who thinks they've gotten away with it, enjoying the power they wield over a grieving family. It's a theory that tragically connects almost all the dots. But even this dark path has its questions. If she was taken for trafficking, why leave no trace? No witness seeing her get into a car? No digital breadcrumb from her own phone after she left, assuming she even had it? Traffickers are often brazen, but this disappearance felt eerily clean. And why target Joniah specifically in this way? While the online evidence shows vulnerability, it also shows numerous contacts. Was she chosen? Or was she? Tragically, just one vulnerable girl caught in a wider net? The sheer number of men involved makes it messy, but the pattern fits the darkest possibilities. Theory 3, the orchestrated disappearance, a trust betrayed. This theory is less discussed, but lurks in the background, colder and more intimate. What if Joniah wasn't acting alone when she vanished? What if her disappearance wasn't an escape or an abduction, but a carefully planned act, orchestrated by someone she knew, someone she trusted, someone who had gained significant influence over her fragile state through those very online channels? Think about it. The hidden life online was real. The men were real. But what if one of them didn't just groom her for exploitation, but for something more drastic? What if they manipulated her profound unhappiness, her desire to vanish, and twisted it into a plan? Let's make you disappear together. They might have whispered, we'll start fresh. No one will ever find us. They could have fed her fantasies of escape, making her believe this was her choice. Her solution, they might have helped her plan the timing. What to say? I'll be back. What not to take? They could have arranged the meeting point, the transport, the next steps. This theory explains the vanishing act itself. It was planned to leave no trace. It potentially explains the initial lack of frantic digital activity. She was following a plan. But what about the calls? Here it gets darker. The manipulator, once they had her isolated, might have made those calls using her compliance or fear. Call your family, tell them you're safe, and to stop looking. Or else, the robotic voice could mask her real voice, showing distress. The man's laugh? the manipulator asserting control, proving to Joniah, or to himself, that he held all the power over her, and over her family's suffering. It's a theory of profound betrayal, where vulnerability is weaponized by a trusted predator to facilitate the disappearance itself. Why would someone do this? Ultimate control, isolation, to possess her completely, away from any other influence or rescue. It's a predator's ultimate fantasy, made real by manipulating a victim's deepest despair. The men vanishing when police investigate? This specific manipulator would be the most motivated to disappear completely, and ensure Joniah did too. So, which is it? Running to something? A desperate, hopeful escape that turned sour, tainted by the cruel calls? Running from something? Fleeing a terrifying reality of exploitation that had already begun, only to be caught in a darker trap? Or orchestrated disappearance? A vulnerable girl manipulated into vanishing by the very person she thought was her savior. Becoming a prisoner in a plan disguised as freedom? Each theory holds weight. Each explains some pieces of the puzzle. The runaway theory speaks to her pain but clashes with the calls. The trafficking/coercion theory fits the online evidence and the men's behavior. But the clean vanishing act is unusual. The orchestrated theory explains the planning and the potential for ongoing control. But feels like the darkest possibility of all. The agonizing truth is this: without Joniah, or without one of those vanished men breaking their silence, we may never know which path she took that afternoon. Was she stepping towards a bus, heart pounding with desperate hope? Was she getting into a car, unaware of the horror awaiting her? Or was she meeting someone she trusted, believing a lie that would end her old life and trap her in a new, hidden nightmare? The only thing that feels certain is that Joniah Walker, the quiet girl in her room, was caught in forces far larger and darker than her family ever imagined. Her disappearance wasn't random. It was the culmination of a hidden life lived in dangerous shadows, a life that spilled out of her phone and into the real world with devastating consequences. Whether she was running towards an illusion of freedom, running from a predator, or walking into a carefully laid trap, she vanished. And the silence left behind is filled with these terrible, unanswered questions. Time passes. It always does. But for Joniah Walker's family, it doesn't bring answers. It brings a different kind of silence, a heavier kind, the frantic energy of the search, the chilling dread of the phone calls, the desperate scramble to understand her hidden life. It all fades. Not because anyone stopped caring, but because the leads just stopped. The phone calls? They ended as suddenly as they began. No more robotic voices slicing through the quiet. No more chilling laughter echoing down the line. The phone sits silent now, a constant reminder of those terrifying intrusions, and the even more terrifying silence that replaced them. The number that taunted them? Gone cold, traced to nothing, a dead end in a digital void. The taunt stopped, but the fear they planted? That took root deep inside. It grows in the quiet. And the men? Those dozens of names, those shadows connected to her phone? They vanished. Not physically. Perhaps some might still be living ordinary lives in ordinary towns. But to the investigation, they disappeared completely. Burner phones were long discarded, untraceable. Social media accounts? Deleted. Wiped clean. Messaging apps abandoned. Digital footprints meticulously erased. The few investigators managed to identify and confront? They shut down. Don't know her. Never spoke to her. You've got the wrong person. Walls of silence. Built high and fast. Reinforced by lawyers. Cooperation? None. They retreated into the noise of the everyday internet. Like ghosts dissolving into fog. Untouchable. Unreachable. The police kept digging. Of course they did. They followed every faint echo. Every whispered tip that came in after the news reports. They chased down old addresses linked to burner phones. Finding empty lots or bewildered new tenants. They tried tracing old payment routes, only to hit encrypted services or accounts closed years ago. They revisited potential meeting spots, scouring for any overlooked security footage, any forgotten witness from that day years ago. Nothing. Dead end. After dead end. After dead end. Each promising thread, pulled with hope, snapped in their hands. The digital trail, once so shockingly vivid, went completely dark. The real-world trail? It was never there to begin with. No one saw her get into a car. No one saw her board a bus. No blurry gas station image. No forgotten receipt. No dropped item. Just the memory of a quiet girl walking down a sidewalk. And then nothing. vanished as if she stepped behind a curtain that closed tight behind her. For the detectives, it became a case file growing thicker with frustration, reports of interviews that led nowhere, printouts of online conversations that screamed danger but pointed to no specific location, no specific person who could be held accountable, maps dotted with pins marking the cities of the men who vanished, a constellation of suspicion with no center, no connection strong enough to break through. The case isn't closed. Not officially, but the active investigation? It slows. It stalls. Resources shift to newer cases with fresher trails. Joniah's file doesn't sit on a desk anymore. It sits on a shelf. It's not closed. It's frozen, preserved in the cold hope that someday, something might thaw it out. But that day hasn't come. And for Joniah's family, this silence is the hardest part, louder than the phone calls ever were. They are left standing in the wreckage of hope, surrounded by questions that haven't faded. They've only grown louder, sharper, echoing in the emptiness. Who used her? Who preyed on her loneliness, her sadness, her desperate need to be seen? Who saw a vulnerable 15-year-old girl and saw an opportunity? Who sent those messages, asked for those things, sent that money? Who turned her private pain into their own dark transaction? Who hurt her? Did someone physically harm her that day? Or did the hurt start long before, in the quiet of her room? Staring at that screen? Was it one man? Several? Was the hurt emotional, psychological, physical, or the ultimate, unthinkable hurt? They don't know. They only know the potential for it was everywhere in her hidden world. Who knows the truth? This is the question that haunts them most. Someone knows. One of those vanished men. The one who made the robotic call. The one who laughed. The one she planned to meet. The one who picked her up. The one who silenced her. Someone is out there, living their life, carrying the secret of what happened to Joniah Walker. They know how the story ends. They know where the trail truly leads. And they've chosen silence. Holidays pass. Birthdays pass. Anniversaries of that terrible day come and go. Each one is a fresh wound. The world moves on. New stories fill the news. But for her family, time is stuck. They are trapped in that moment of not knowing, wondering, imagining the worst possibilities. Because the not knowing is the worst possibility. Is she alive somewhere? Suffering? Trapped? Or is she gone? Forever? Her story ended in some hidden place? The lack of an answer is a constant. Gnawing pain. They try to keep her memory alive. They share her story when they can, hoping against hope that this time, someone will come forward. Someone will remember a detail. Someone's conscience will crack. They watch the news, scan missing persons databases, jump at any report that sounds vaguely similar, only to be crushed by disappointment. Again and again, hope becomes a dangerous thing, a thin thread that threatens to break them every time it doesn't lead to her. The case file gathers dust, but it's always there, a silent accusation, a monument to failure, a reminder of a quiet girl who walked out the door and stepped into a void that swallowed her whole, and the dozens of men who slipped back into the shadows, untouched. It waits. It waits for a phone to ring with a credible tip. It waits for a new technology to crack an old encryption. It waits for a confession whispered in the dark. It waits for a body to be found, offering grim closure. It waits for the break that makes sense of the senseless. But years have passed. 2022 feels like a lifetime ago. And the break, it never comes. The trail didn't just grow cold. It froze solid. Joniah Walker remains a haunting question mark. A life interrupted. A mystery suspended in the chilling silence of a dead end. Her family is left with only echoes. The echo of her mumbled goodbye. The echo of that robotic voice. The echo of a cruel laugh. And the deafening, endless echo of their own unanswered questions in the empty space where she should be. Joniah Walker's story ends in silence. A frozen case file. A family trapped in grief and unanswered questions. But to leave it there, to see her only as another missing girl in a world full of tragedies, is to miss the terrifying point. Her vanishing act isn't just her story. It's a stark, chilling spotlight on a danger hiding in plain sight. In the glow of the screens we hold every single day. Why Joniah? Why this quiet girl? The answer isn't fate or bad luck. It's vulnerability. She was quiet. She was hurting. She felt unseen, unheard, adrift in a world that felt too loud and too uncaring. She was exactly the kind of young person predators look for. Not the loud rebels, often surrounded by friends, but the quiet ones, the ones who slip through the cracks because they don't make waves. the ones scrolling alone in their rooms, searching for connection, for understanding, for anyone who seems to see the person behind the silence. In her loneliness, she was wide open, and the world she turned to? It wasn't the safe, curated space we imagine. It was the vast, unregulated underbelly of the internet. Hidden apps, encrypted messages, platforms designed for secrecy, places where identities are masks, and intentions are hidden behind usernames and profile pictures. This is where the watchers live. The ones who don't scroll past vulnerability. They stop. They linger. They study it. They see the quiet girl posting sad poetry. The one with few friends online. The one who seems isolated. They see a target. They don't need to break down doors. They slip in through Wi-Fi signals. A friendly message. A compliment that feels genuine. I like your art. You seem deep. I get it. Life is hard. They offer the one thing she craved: attention, understanding, the feeling of being seen. They build trust slowly, patiently. They become a confidant, a secret friend, the only one who truly gets her. This is the grooming ground. It happens not in dark alleys, but in bedrooms, living rooms, anywhere a phone connects. It happens while parents are in the next room, unaware of the digital predator whispering through the device in their child's hand. Joniah's hidden online life wasn't some bizarre anomaly. It was a symptom of a teenager using the only tools she had, her phone, her apps, to try and fill a void of loneliness and pain. But instead of finding connection, she found a marketplace where her attention, her trust, her vulnerability, and ultimately, her very self, became commodities for sale. The men contacting her weren't anomalies either. They are a constant, disturbing presence in these digital shadows. Some are calculated groomers, building relationships to exploit. Others are blunt purchasers, looking to buy access. All are adults. All are seeking something from a child. The secrecy wasn't just Joniah hiding typical teen stuff. It was the secrecy of survival, of shame, of entering a world she didn't fully understand, but felt compelled to explore. She didn't tell her family because she knew, deep down, it was wrong, or because she was scared, or because the manipulator told her not to. The phone, that lifeline to the outside world, became her cage. The very thing offering escape became the chain binding her to danger. The parallel life wasn't a choice made lightly. It was a desperate attempt to find belonging in a space teeming with wolves. And why now? Why is this happening more? Or at least, why are we seeing it more? Because the digital world isn't separate anymore. It is the world for teenagers. It's where they live, love, fight, and find themselves. But we, as adults, as a society, haven't caught up. We hand them powerful devices, miniature computers with access to the entire world, good and evil, often without the tools, the understanding, or the difficult conversations needed to navigate it safely. We worry about strangers in vans, but the stranger in the DM? The one with the kind words and the sinister intentions? That threat feels abstract. Until it isn't. Until it steals a quiet girl from her home. Joniah's case forces us to look beyond the single tragedy. It forces us to ask the uncomfortable, terrifying question. How many other Joniahs are out there right now? Right now, as we speak. How many other quiet teens, feeling lost and alone, are scrolling through their feeds? How many are receiving messages from strangers whose profile pictures hide predatory smiles? How many are being slowly groomed, lured into hidden conversations, solicited for photos, promised money or love or escape? How many are already living a dangerous double life? Their pain exploited by unseen men in the digital shadows, while their families see only silence and a closed bedroom door. How many are vanishing? Not physically yet, but piece by piece. Their innocence, their trust, their safety eroded through a screen. And how many will eventually walk out their own doors, like Joniah, heading towards a planned meeting, or fleeing a terrifying online reality, only to vanish completely? How many families will be left staring at a silent phone, clutching a faded flyer, haunted by the same unanswerable questions? Who used them? Who hurt them? Where are they? The scariest part isn't the vanishing act itself. It's the fact that the first steps towards disappearance aren't taken on a sidewalk. They're taken in the quiet solitude of a bedroom, fingers typing on a glass screen. The victim vanishes in plain sight long before they ever physically disappear. They vanish into the curated persona of the groomer. They vanish into the secret accounts and encrypted apps. They vanish into transactions and demands hidden from the people who love them. They become ghosts in their own digital lives, visible only to the predators circling them. Joniah Walker's frozen case file is a monument to this chilling reality. Her unanswered why echoes for every vulnerable kid navigating the digital wilderness alone. Her story screams a warning we can't afford to ignore. The most dangerous place for a quiet, hurting teenager might not be the street corner. It might be the bedroom, lit only by the glow of a phone screen, connecting them to a world where watchers wait, predators prey, and vanishing happens silently, one message at a time. How many others are slipping through the cracks? Right now, vanishing in plain sight while the world scrolls obliviously past. That is the true, haunting legacy of Joniah Walker's silence. After years of silence, dead ends, and haunting questions, Joniah Walker's story hangs suspended. But silence doesn't mean surrender. Not for her family, not for the truth. Someone holds the key to this mystery. Someone can still shatter this agonizing quiet. If you are watching this, if you know anything, no matter how small, how insignificant you think it might be, speak up now. Did you know Joniah online? Did you use one of those hidden usernames? Did you send her a message? Even just once? Did you send money? Did you arrange to meet her? Did you hear rumors? Did you know one of the men connected to her? Did you make one of those calls? Do you know who did? That detail you've carried, maybe buried out of fear, or shame, or a mistaken belief it doesn't matter. It could be the missing piece. The one thread investigators can finally pull. The phone call you overheard. The strange behavior you noticed in someone back then. The snippet of conversation about a girl meeting someone. The location mentioned that never made it into the reports. Anything. Her family has lived in a nightmare of not knowing for years. Every single day is a fresh wound. The lack of answers is a constant, crushing weight. They deserve peace. They deserve to know what happened to their daughter, their granddaughter. They deserve an end to the torturous what-ifs. Your voice could give them that. Your courage could lift that weight. And Joniah, she deserves to be found. She deserves her name spoken with resolution, not just as a question mark. She deserves dignity. She deserves justice, whatever that may look like. If she is out there, hidden, trapped, afraid, she deserves freedom. If she is gone, she deserves to be brought home, and her family deserves to lay her to rest. Speaking up isn't just about information. It's about giving Joniah back the basic human respect of being known. So, pick up the phone, make the call, contact the authorities handling her case, the name of the department. A tip line number will be clearly listed below. You can remain anonymous if you need to. You don't have to give your name, just give them the information. Point them in the right direction. Break the silence that has protected the shadows for too long. And Joniah, if by some chance you are listening, if you're watching this, hidden somewhere, under a different name, a different life, please hear this. You are not forgotten. Not for a single day. The love for you hasn't faded. It's a constant ache. Whatever happened, whatever choices were made, whatever pressures you faced, it doesn't matter now. What matters is you, your safety, your well-being. Wherever you are, whatever circumstances hold you, it is not too late to come home. It is not too late to reach out. To the police, to a shelter, to a trusted friend. Send a message. Make a call. Just let someone know you're alive. Your family is waiting. They just want you. They will meet you with open arms. Not judgment. Just come home. Share this story. Keep her name alive. Someone, somewhere, knows something. Let's find Joniah Walker. Let's bring her home. Let's end the silence. If you have information about Joniah Walker's disappearance, please contact insert relevant law enforcement agency name here, at insert phone number /tip line here, or submit an anonymous tip online at insert website link here. If applicable, no detail is too small.